Just go live. All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. I believe we're live.
We're live?
I believe so. Well, my name's Max Gain. I'm an author, a playwright, and a card game developer. And I'm here with Andrew, who is also an author, a game developer, and an actual child who is currently spelunking in the abyss. Is that not correct, Andrew?
Well, you'd be surprised at how good the reception is in the Abyss. So I can actually not only have enough bandwidth to watch Arcane, but also have enough bandwidth to call and stream with you. And there's not a whole lot to do in the Abyss, so I ended up just watching all of Arcane.
I'm gonna guess. I mentioned this, but I'm going to assume you probably don't get the reference either. I'm going to guess that you are not watching Made in Abyss, the new season that's out this anime season. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I don't know anything about anime, Max.
I know. We've gotten into.
You pulled that one on purpose.
I did, but I also want to talk a bit about it. Made in Abyss is fucking great. You'll recall on this show, I said earlier, that Arcane is the greatest series since Full Metal Brotherhood. If Arcane did not exist, Made in Abyss would be that show. It is phenomenal. It's great. I'll give you the synopsis real quick. It's about a hole, big fuck off hole in the ground, and inside the hole is nothing but pain and despair. And the deeper you go, there is more pain and more despair. And it's about two kids who are going straight to the bottom, baby. It is fantastic. Maybe we should watch it. It has. I was watching a thing on the new Lord of the Rings, where
Oh no.
AJW is talking about generic dialogue in films, and I hadn't really thought about it too deeply before, but it's a good point, and it made me think of in Made in the Abyss. There's a character called Bone Druid, and he's a terrifying villain. And this dude straight up, because how everyone has, like, all the villains have memorable phrases for, like, these very scary moments, right? Bone Druid's horrifying line is straight up oopsie. And it's fucking terrifying when he says it.
Oh no.
He's like, oopsie. And you're like, oh fuck. This is terrible. This is literally the worst thing he could have possibly said. I did not know I could be so fucking terrified of oopsie.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal show. I'd recommend it if you haven't seen it. Maybe next year when we're done Arcane, we'll take a look at it.
Does feel like it'll take that long, doesn't it?
Well, we're a third of the way through. We're on the second act now, so we're making headway. We should announce to everyone that you have in fact seen all of Arcane at this point.
I said that. I've been watching it in the Abyss.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I thought you were talking about but no, that's right. You have seen it. And despite my constant explanations that it's super important to remember stuff about Silco, you did not notice the thing, which is fantastic.
There's nothing to notice.
This will absolutely be important later. I'm telling you. No one. It's like I'm goddamn Alex Jones in here. Listen, I'm a human. I breathe fire.
Listen, Max, they weren't turning people of Zon gay. They were just giving them purple juice to make them swole.
They're putting chemicals in the water. They're putting chemicals in the drugs. Which actually, a fun fact, there is actually a legitimate story behind that fucking meme. Surprising. This is one of the fantastic things about Alex Jones. The shit he says is insane, but anything he says, there's usually like a small kernel of truth buried somewhere in there. That you have to dig out if you ever want to talk about anything he says, except for Sandy Hook. Probably wrong about that, but it, Andrew, do you know what the best strike to take down a child is? Sandy Hook.
Next, let's talk about.
Talk about Arcane.
Talk about Arcane. That's the right
Talk
one.
about Arcane. Right. So, last we left off, Jinx blew everything up and killed everyone she ever cared about except Vi. And then Silco took her in. Oh, and we didn't. I wanted to talk about this, but episode 3 has some spacing issues, like physical spacing, and we neglected to talk about it. Or
we talked a bit about it,
right? But I just want to say that was a good example for like the canned area, because it's unclear like what floor they're on half the time. It seems like they're on the second floor, but then it has like the escape that makes it look like there's a path out. But then also it looks like part of it's underground. My point is that because when I said earlier the spacing's confusing, this is similar. It seems like the explosion part that's behind the glass is all underwater, because that's where Silco saw the sea creatures. Which, remember, this is very important.
It's not.
It is. It absolutely is. But oh fuck, where was it? So it seems like that's like a basement level, and then they're on the first floor, but then they jump out from the second floor onto the ground. So it's kind of a mess. I'm sure you could find a way to make it all work, but it's just not super clearly communicated. And that's what I kind of meant as an issue, especially in episode 9, which Andrew has now seen, where they go back to the can factory, and it seems like the whole thing is like, and it's unclear like where it is situated. Because at first it was like deep under, yeah. I just get the way they've done the visuals. It's confusing about how things physically exist in space, at least in my opinion. Do you disagree with that, Andrew? Or have something you want to add before we get into the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's not super. It wasn't particularly like jarring for me. It was only jarring for me when like Silco seemed to come from the same direction that Vi left from. And we talked. I remember we talked about that. So
Yeah. And then I think this episode has some confusing editing in it as well. So, but these are pretty much minor mistakes. I don't think really hurt the overall enjoyability of the film or the show, I guess. In this,
I don't think it's a terribly bad deal. It's worth noting because like there's a lot of good stuff you can say about Arcane. We might as well say the stuff that could be better too.
yeah. I think I'm having issues on my website. Fix that. I'll fix that. As I'm doing that, Andrew. While we do that, Andrew, I don't know, but did you notice on our on the homepage that there's actually another show planned? Did you see that?
I haven't seen it, but I may have heard about it yesterday. A friend,
There we go.
little bird, told me that there is another show planned.
That's right. We have a show tomorrow. Not Andrew. We didn't invite him because we don't like him anymore.
Yeah, it's completely fair. Don't see it planned on your Oh, I do see it planned. Never mind.
I mean, listen. If you want to show up, you can show up. It's you actually. I did it all in our old Halo Discord, so you can straight up just show up at any point if you want. But yes,
I'm definitely gonna be in the chat. I might jump into the call if you're cool with it, but I'll message you first if I'm gonna do that.
I mean, there's
There's-
literally nothing stopping you from jumping in. You have access to the server. But
I'm
yeah,
not gonna just butt
we're
in,
doing
though.
Halo tomorrow. We're going through Halo because I've heard that it's a complete and utter fucking mess and a
I've
horrible
heard as
show.
well.
And I figured we should talk about it. And then two other things in the pipeline. Me and Andrew are going to be doing a review of Primer. Uh, don't know when that's going to be released.
Wait,
Wait. Wait for what?
I can't wait.
Oh, okay. I thought you said wait, like stop.
No, going.
I thought you were going to like, you've betrayed the secrets of the Brotherhood. You must now face the blade. No, but Andrew and I are going to be
Yes.
doing a review of Primer. And I'm working on a review for a movie by a little indie studio. I believe it's Pixar. Uh, I should fact check. I read it on a review, but the Sea Beast, which was just released on Netflix, I watched it, and I want to level with you up front. I saw so many reviews on like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. Like I think it has like a 75% on the one and like near 10 on the other. I'm on level with you. It's not good, which is it's a shame. I really wanted it to be, but it's just not. No, it's
I have not
Sony
seen it.
Pictures, Netflix Animation, Image Works, which is same. I think Sony Pictures is the same guy who did the Spider-Verse. I don't know. I'm still
Oh,
working on the review, so I'll do all the fact checking as I write it. But the movie itself, not great. Uh, which is real unfortunate. But aside from that, uh, we are going to be talking about a show that is great. We're going to be talking about Arcane. You excited, Andrew?
oh, oh, the misery. Everybody wants to be my enemy.
That is that this episode?
Oh, this is
I think that's
congratulatory progressive
right. I'm thinking
cycle.
episode 6 is where Vi and Jinx meet. I was thinking it was 5. Right, this is the one where she gets out of prison. Okay. And my mouse is
Oh,
just
no, this is when she gets out of prison in 5. 5, I'm pretty sure, is called Everybody Wants to Be My Enemy.
right. Caitlin meets her at the end of this though in prison, and then at the beginning of episode 5 she gets lets out. I know where we are. We're in the abyss. Also, other news. Just throwing this out there. We're getting another season of Pantsing and Stalking. Let's go! I am so excited for this, although I don't know how good it's going to be. Andrew, I'm going to guess you've never seen the cult anime classic that is Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt.
Oh.
But to give you an idea, the last episode released right before Christmas, and the ending of the show was the second, one of the two main characters, Stocking, cuts up the other main character with their sword, betrays everyone, joins the bad side, and then it cuts to a slide that says to be continued in season 2. This was like a
Well
decade
then.
ago. There was never a season 2, and I'm not sure anyone was ever really planned. So it was called The Year Gynax Ruined Christmas. Which is kind of a hilarious trolling way to end a show, and probably, and given the nature of the show, it is not out of place. Yeah, it ran a decade ago. Ran from October to December 2010. So Dad
Wow.
has finally come back with the milk. Though the question is, will the milk be spoiled? I don't know.
So wait, so let me get this straight. It was 2010.
Yeah, October, December 2010.
So how are they gonna have? Like, do they have the same actors?
I have no idea. Maybe.
Hold on, I'm gonna turn the lights on in my room. It's dark. Wait. There, I can hear you again.
All right. Well, we'll find out about that show when it's released. Right now, I'm gonna hit play on Arcane. Are you ready?
No.
Well, too bad.
And Rainbow CD. Okay, so they don't do the CD specifically for a song.
They do them for songs at the beginning of every episode, I think. So we have,
Okay, yeah. So this is a song going on. Oh wait, no. What is it?
uh,
They just go right
yeah,
into it.
it's just background music.
We learn
Oh,
that he's well, I guess we already knew that he was a founder, but now we kind of get a comparison of how old Heimerdinger is compared to the city. So he was 107 that was founded, so presumably the Grand Mage War happened right before that because they founded the city to a certain extent to get away from whatever that conflict was.
yeah, to escape the warmongering of mages.
Hmm.
I'd like to take a moment because we haven't really seen much. Because I want to talk about the actual scene itself. But before that, I'd like to talk a little bit about why I think the time skip is actually a really good idea here.
Sure.
Uh, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, you want to have the backstory, and so doing the backstory through flashbacks is generally flashbacks are okay, but if everything's a flashback, it gets kind of annoying. But what I think about doing, what I really like about the flashback and doing a flashback here is that essentially we are seeing the world from Vi's perspective, right? Like Vi, we have not seen anything that's happened in the past. I think it's like 6 years that's occurred,
Hmm.
and so when we experience the rest of the season, it will be as we are experiencing it as if we were Vi. And I think one, that's an interesting an interesting perspective and design choice. But two, I think it's also the only way this arc works, because
This arc being like whose arc? Vi's arc?
uh, well, the I meant the season story arc,
Oh, okay.
right? I guess Vi's arc works better, because Vi, of course, is trying to convince Powder to like go back, or I guess at this point she's Powder Jinx. We'll call her JP for short. Uh, at this
Probably
point,
just call her Jinx.
well, I don't believe she is Jinx at this point. So that's why I make the
No,
distinction.
it's what she's called though.
Well, I mean, yeah, so they do call her that, but
She's already well. We'll see what she's up to.
right, Vi. So Vi calls her Powder. Everyone
Yeah.
else calls her Jinx. I maintain this is like a Rorschach situation. Have you read The Watchmen?
Oh no.
Rorschach has this line where he's talking about him being a hero, and he talks about he's going around. He's telling this therapist about how he's going around as Rorschach, and so he's talking about, okay, so this is when you start being Rorschach. He's like, no, that was I think his real name is Kovac. He says that's Kovac wearing the Rorschach mask, and he talks about this time later in the book where he becomes Rorschach, which is many years. I don't actually know the exact time frame, but it's a while after he dons the mask first. And so he's making this distinction between these two people essentially, from before and after this night, this job he goes on this one night. I think the same's true here. I think right now JP is in this flux position where she's like half Powder, half Jinx. She's in this like melting, mixing position, and it's not until episode 9 she actually becomes Jinx. Uh, But we'll talk a bit about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
But and we'll probably talk a bit more about Vi, because I think that scene really illustrates the point I'm going to make here, which is Vi's attempts and Vi's plans are doomed from the start. I don't think there is any practical, like Vi as she exists, as who she is, and who Powder Jinx is at this moment in time. This plan of Vi's is doomed to failure. She's right there. I don't think there's any chance for J Powder Jinx to become this person that Vi wants her to be. And Vi doesn't realize that because she's been missing for 6 years.
Yeah, she
So
hasn't seen what happened.
right, whereas and we also have been missing for 6 years. So by doing it in this way, Vi's sort of objectives and plans seem like reasonable strategies. Whereas if we had gone through 6 years of her slaughtering Zonites and people she considers friends, we'll talk about this in a little bit. Right, we would say we would know off the bat that this plan is doomed. This is a bad plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas having this jump
Mhm.
cut here and experiencing it through Vi's eyes, uh, the viewer can there is that suspense still exists, and the viewer can reasonably root for Vi, even though the plan, I think in hindsight, was obviously doomed. Uh, and we'll talk a bit about this in when Echo shows up this episode. But in the meantime, is there anything you want to talk about the time skip, or should we talk about this opening?
I did want to say something about the time skip. I think another advantage of it is like the thematic aspect. I think a big part of theme of this is I'm not sure exactly how to articulate it, but something like well, like people change because like everybody changes throughout that time skip. Everybody grew up or got serious or is about to or has done things that they never would have thought, wanted, or dreamed to do. And yeah, um, how do I put this? So, I don't know, help me out here, Max. You see, I'm kind of
Uh,
yeah, like I
I
don't
get you
like.
trying to talk about
Do
change here.
you think is it the case that like is it the case that it's like time skip because of theme, or is it more so that just comes out of the fact that there is a time skip?
Uh,
'Cause I
Probably
think
the
like
second.
given her story, like given Vi's story, part of it is yeah, she wasn't in prison and now it's like she's gonna meet all these people that she hasn't seen in such a long time. Like that was something that I was feeling a lot during the show of like and because I often think about like what it'd be like to see people that I haven't seen in years. What would that be like? Um, how are they different? Um, I don't know. There's a lot of either like nostalgia in that, but also in the case when people go off and do terrible things, it's like, well, yeah, I don't know if I've ever known this person or like at this point, like she hasn't quite not known them for longer than she's known them, but it might feel like that just because of how different everyone is. But yeah, just some thoughts.
All right, let's look a bit at this opening shot. I think this is actually a pretty good opening for well, I'm gonna my volume a little bit. I think
Yeah.
this is probably a great opening for it, right? Right. Sandwich Sandwich
Stanwick
pad
Piddly.
recipe for storage.
For start, yes.
So
Stanwick Piddly.
I so I like this opening. You like this opening or you dislike this opening?
I love this opening.
Yeah, I think this opening is great. Um, and one of the ways you can tell it's great is that it didn't open with Jace walking in and saying, "Hey, Professor Heimerdinger," and Heimerdinger turns to him and says, "Hey, uh, have you made any progress on your projects?" "Oh, you've been asking me the same question for the past 6 years, Professor Heimerdinger." The 6 years since I first did make the first stonework 6 years ago. It's been turns to camera. It's been 6 years since the previous episode. Right? He comes in, and already we can see that the relationship is different between the two. Uh, he's obviously no Heimerdinger is more of is a sort of mentor figure, but now they've sort of reached a more peer status. Not quite, because Heimerdinger is still lecturing him because he is the professor and the teacher and the whatnot.
Mentor.
But he'll go on to say you should give the opening progress speech, which he's been doing it since the founding of the city. Sort of puts them on a sort of peerage, right? So there's a level of respect that's been given to him post post this post development post time skip. I'm having so much trouble with words today. But right, and then without telling us, right? They're not telling, they're showing. They're going to start going through all the different advancements that's been made. Well, to be fair, they do say stuff like advancements in math and science, and arts and whatnot. But that's accompanied by visuals indicating the progress of the city and how it's changed in that time. And then Stanwyck, and then of course this thing on Stanwyck Pedidally sort of embodies the differences in their views a little bit. Well, not a whole lot. It sort of speaks to Heimerdinger's underlying philosophy, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. His whole point, the whole story of Stanwyck Pedidally, at least in this case, is giving up personal ambitions and personal pride for the betterment of others. Which isn't actually too different from Jace's character. A little bit. His whole thing is he wants to make life better, but his entire arc is going to be caught up in his personal goals as opposed to what is necessarily better. Whereas Victor sort of keeps with the we got to make everything better for everyone. Do you agree, disagree with that analysis?
I think so.
You think you agree or you think you disagree?
Yes.
Great. And that's also an interesting line. I had no idea about Stanwyck Pedidally, which sort of echoes the how Victor's arc, because Victor wants to be remembered, and that's one of his big things when he finds out he's dying. What haven't you to show for your legacy? Whereas the point of this scene, and the point I think Heimerdinger is making, is the the thing that's important isn't uh, what you isn't necessarily what you do specifically or what you accomplish. It's doing something to improve the lives of the people around you. Stanley's case, he doesn't make anything, but he helps his students grow, and as a result, those students go on to do these wondrous things, which I think is sort of the main takeaway from this part of from this story. Anything you wanted to add?
Not for now.
All right. Right. We've talked about this. I'm gonna mute it while we talk a little bit. Yeah, he gives the progress speech and he agrees, and now we have this outshot where we go through. Right, and I like how it's revealed a fair bit. Right, we have the that slow reveal that's kind of been characteristic for Arcane up to this point.
Oh yeah.
Right,
It's
uh,
like like you can tell things have changed in the city, but it's like you don't super see anything super crazy just yet. Like nothing super magical just yet.
and so we have the sun. I guess it could be rising or setting, but I think it's supposed to be the sunrise at this point. Uh, and then we have like an angel in the foreground. Right, and here that's the blimp there. Right, and we can see a smaller one in the background, but you're more likely to miss that first time round. And notice all the colors that are being used are these shades of like yellow and gold.
Yeah. It's very luminescent
Yep.
color scheme.
It's literally a bright future.
Yep.
And then of course we zoom out, we get to see the aircraft.
It's quite impressive. Like Jace went from being, like Jason, well, I guess it's fair to say like a criminal. Like he was on trial, he was sentenced to banishment from the academy. Then shows up Victor comes in, helps him out, and then now Jace is oh, man like. And interestingly enough, like he's very humbled as well, clearly by this honor that Heimerdinger is giving him. Like he's not like I don't have the impression Jace being like I'm the best, like I'm so cool, like look what I did. Um, but just like being very aware of responsibility, I guess. And just like he does seem to be genuinely like grateful at every turn and like positively proud, like happy at what he's done, which I think that's really cool. I think it's really like great that we don't see like the sort of you could say like cliche of like oh like you know little guy becomes a big man and like suddenly like becomes like big shot type person. Like he changed in terms of the way people see him, but he hasn't changed in terms of who he is at this point. So I don't know, I like that.
He's a moralist who believes in la responsabilité. That is a Disco Elysium reference. Uh,
Ah, I see.
which which also I think is a good game. Uh,
So I've heard.
yeah. And once again, we have as we come out, we have the brightness, and then fading to reveal what we actually see as per the city. Floats everywhere, gold roofs instead of blue, and we still have like the blue roof stuff, but a lot more gold is present, and that gels really well. Or it's complemented by the bright yellow sun.
This massive thing here, the pride of Piltover.
Also, notice below we have fog obscuring our vision of truly what's happening below, only focusing on the big monument at the top.
Interesting.
And talking about those the heaven parallels in the first episode we talked about, we literally have a city above the clouds. And then once again we have a slow reveal up to this big gate. And they're off.
Leprot. Pretty cool.
Any final thoughts on that opening you wanted to share?
I think it's interesting how like it's like well you have a lot to live up to. Yeah, because they just created literally a teleporter, or at least a super fast transportation. Um, so
Yeah. All
like
in all, I like.
what does Chase have to build now?
Well, we have a surprise in the lab, Andrew. I guess we'll
You
find out. Oh, and then we have.
arguably not as impressive as the teleporter though.
Now it's all a matter of perspective. Now we're coming down. We lots of gold and lots of green and blue.
More daily life of Piltover.
Yeah, and we're seeing
Still,
like we didn't see we seeing a whole ton of inventions, and I think this is because it's the progress day, which sounds like a bit of a dystopian holiday, but in the context of this show is actually very good.
yeah,
uh,
new prototypes, new ideas and stuff. It's like it's all like cool, fun stuff.
right, literally showing the revival of science and art and culture within the city caused by Jace's hexgates.
Is it implied that Progress Day started since Jace came in?
I think progress because they said that you've always given that speech, so I think progress stage has been there since time immemorial.
Okay.
I guess not time immemorial, but since founding.
Yeah.
Hmm. Andrew, take a
Yeah.
look at this. I
Yeah.
wonder if this will be important later. Wink, wink,
Yeah,
nudge,
and
nudge.
I found this very interesting given like well, um yeah, it's interesting. I want to ask something about these but I don't want to speak to things that happen later on. It's interesting what these things are up to now compared to what they're up to later.
And this is kind of because this is going to go the same way that that Jace's hex tech goes, and there's kind of a parallel there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's great because this is all set up for episode 7. They've set this up, and then as well in in this episode later, it sets this up more. We'll talk about it when we get there, but I'll keep pointing them out when we see them. Also, wonderful mustache on that man,
Oh, fantastic mustache.
and notice the Jace. It'll be a bit clearer on the mug earlier, but we have man of man of progress. We have Jason, we have his gears, but at the back that's clearly the sun. With the rays shining. Modeled after, quick trivia. Do you know what country has a flag modeled after the sun that looks a fair bit like this?
Um, I'm I feel like Japan comes
It
to
is
mind.
Japan, or Nippon, or because their country name directly translated into English is Land of the Rising Sun. Hence why their
Hmm.
flag is a giant rising sun,
Right.
which parallels, the sun is a star, Jace is a rising star. This community, and is being associated with the light of dawn and beginnings, and as well as the sort of symbol of light and hope and the star of Piltover at this moment.
Oh yeah, no, people love him. Which is interesting. Like you have someone this loved, for very good reason. Um, like, well, we'll see. Like, it's interesting what that will he gets just from that reputation that he has, right?
And look at this. I wonder if this man will be important later.
Is that the same guy, or is that
I
just the
believe it
same
is.
species? You think it's the same person?
Yeah. Uh, Because why would they focus on like one? Okay, so there's a guy with bad ears, a bat guy later in the show. You only ever
I
see one bat person. They're not common, right?
always saw a few, but maybe that was just because I thought of this guy and that other guy, if it's the same guy.
Right.
That was just like another somewhat uncommon but still numerous species
Two,
in this land.
he's acting differently from everyone else, right? Everyone's focused around Jace. He's looking around. I think my head can. How I think is happening here is he is the same guy, and they've sent him to scout or something,
Mm,
and that's why he shows up later with them.
makes sense. That's yeah. That's so this I found this interesting because Jace, like I guess it's implied that he doesn't want the attention so much. Like he's not well, he's certainly not doing anything for the attention.
I
It's
think he
also
just wants to
like
talk to Caitlyn.
yeah, yeah, but I mean like you could talk to Caitlyn in like, a few minutes after like the ordeal of like let me talk to these people. Like he's not it's not necessarily like he's obviously like fine in that setting, but it's not necessarily something that he like wants to do. And we see later that he's not immediately comfortable with doing that. He needs some encouragement. Let's call it encouragement, not
I
manipulation.
I
But
imagine that the mom's been just parading him around all day.
yeah, he wants to get away from
And
that.
he's just sick of it.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and he comes up to this mysterious enforcer, who we have no idea who
yeah,
she is.
yeah. Caitlin. Possible. A woman can't risk like a man.
Impossible, impossible. Women can't leave the kitchen.
They start melting if they do.
Are melting. That's why we invented roofs. Uh, but no, obviously Caitlyn is probably the most effective member of their police force. Uh,
That's true.
uh, and uh, and that's why she becomes sheriff. Uh, no, I don't know. She doesn't become a sheriff in this season, but she does end up becoming sheriff at the end of the story. But yeah, it's nice to see that they still get along as friends and only friends. I saw a lot of people
Fortunately.
complain about Mel and Jace's relationship because they thought the age gap was too large.
Between
Jace
Mel
and
and
Mel.
Jace? Really? Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't even realize that there was much of an age gap.
I'm not sure there is either.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, Caitlyn is much younger than Jace, but
And
and
I think
she's obviously an adult now.
I think, and don't hold this too dearly, right? This is just a thought, but people on the internet might be a bit sensitive.
You know what else? People on
I'm
the
just
internet might be a little bit retarded.
I saw a lady complaining about all the Jew jokes in Spaceballs, a Star
Oh
Wars
no.
parody written by Mel Brooks, one of the most famous
Who is?
Jewish
Yeah.
film comedians. I saw someone replied, and like a white woman getting angry about Jew jokes in a film by a beloved Jewish icon is peak peak internet 2020 or something like that.
It's amazing. True. It seems to have gotten I was thinking a couple days ago about how like things have gotten worse in well, we don't need to talk about that. It's unrelated. It's more of a I don't know. I don't know. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'll be quiet.
Hey, this gives us some good. Well, you've seen this, so I can actually mute it and talk about it. but this tells us a fair bit about Caitlyn's character, right? She's obviously has this dumb fucking job. She likes the
Yeah.
enforcer, but her mom keeps giving her these dumb fucking assignments. But despite that, she's still there and she's still taking it seriously, right?
True.
Even
Yeah.
Jace, like,
Yeah.
you can't, you don't need to take this seriously. No, this is my job. This is what I do. Ironically, uh, following her mom's orders and guarding the place may be a form of rebellion against her mom. But yeah, it shows how.
I think it speaks more to her like, genuine like sense of duty than her like desire for rebellion in this case because like
I would agree.
yeah, it's not much of a rebellion.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's there's also I gotta say though I was a little bit like had that like feeling of like man yeah like people change because they were like she seemed to look up to him at least like they definitely seemed to be like quite like friends then they still seem to be friends but she seems to be a lot more cold to him and especially later on but that's because like she
Yeah.
interprets something that he does as um well we'll get to that but
I
like
think I think at this point
it
they're
was
still
just like
pretty
it's too
close.
bad
Like she's twisting his arm and shit. But as the
yeah
series goes on and she goes right, there's never like a falling out. But people in
no
life
no
just go their separate ways and are doing separate stuff,
yeah.
right? Like I can think of tons of friends we had in high school who we haven't talked to since and don't really know what they're doing or what they're up to. And it's kind of the same thing because she spends pretty much all the time after this in Zon, aside from when she comes back. And by then, Jace has gone down his own path, and now they're sort of no one's really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
But let's get a bit further in. Right, she's fucking roasting him.
Happy Progress Day.
The time to
I don't know why I
progress.
love that.
He's just a man out having fun, drinking
Yes,
beers.
having a great time in the sky. It's awesome.
He's the only one in the show who's having a great time.
Oh man,
So I
Ace Russian flying guy. Oh, I love that. I love that. How many people do you think know to like pick up on that visual at this point?
which one specifically?
Well, just that shot that we just saw of yeah, right there. That
Right, I don't think anyone's picked up on because I mentioned it when we went into episode 3 that we see this
yeah,
in Benzo's
yeah,
shop, but it's like in the
yeah.
background and you don't really notice it. I think the biggest hint is when he takes out the watch, which will be in a bit.
That's only a hint to people that know the game, right? Because he never
Yeah,
uses a watch. Yeah.
right. But at this point, right? So this is the big hint and I mean technically, if you want to talk about the show, the first time we see Echo is he's working on a clock,
Oh, true. True.
right? But I think this is a great introduction, right? Once again, we're getting
I agree.
pieces, the slow reveal as we go through this grate. We don't really know what's going on, which adds to the confusion when it finally happens, right?
Man,
Right?
I just love the firelights. Like I don't know why, but like it's just so cool. And like I think at episode 7, I think is the boy savior. I think
Yep.
like that like rap at the beginning. I don't know why I love that so much. It's just like have like such a unique aesthetic and just love everything about like they don't play like a super huge part, but like I don't know, they just kind of like the it sticks with me. It's like a new faction that emerges as a consequence to what happened. Like, it makes sense that like these guys they grow up and they're like, no one else is doing anything about this. We might as well.
Yeah.
They just make the most of it. Like I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about the, like you mentioned the aesthetic. A good a good character design and good aesthetic stylings should be able to convey information to you, right? Like even design choices on the firelights. Like they ride around on skateboards, hovercraft
Yeah.
skateboards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It screams like rebellious youth.
Yeah.
Um, and then the time and the masks and whatnot give us some hints, like they're sort of some sort of secret organization, something to do with time. We can figure out Echo maybe if you're familiar enough with the content. Uh, but yeah, there's tons of whenever you do any sort of character design or any aesthetic stylings, right? The choice to use hip hop, right? Hip hop was born from like the black underclass in the U.S. It makes perfect sense that this would be the musical sort of aesthetic that this ragtag rebellious underclass would go with. Uh, I think JXC when he talked on EFAP says if there was going to be a a musical genre that they would use, that would be the musical genre. So all these like my aesthetic and design choices that may seem minor at first all serve to cohesively build together this idea of who these people are, right? And
Absolutely.
then moving back into this, I like the way the shot's set up because it's designed to be a little confusing, which is exactly what Silco's people are going to be experiencing in the moment. Right? We have them going somewhere. Uh, let's move it back a bit. Right? We have this shot where they come in, uh, loading something up. Seems to be just a normal day. Right? And now we have these people going through these dark tunnels. We're not really sure where they're going or what they're doing. Then we cut, and immediately, right, big guy on the left is immediately noticeable, right? Because he's huge and has tattoos, and we've got lots of close-up shots from him from the previous arc. And then at the back, you may or may not notice Savika. She's a bit more hidden, but clearly this is
Yeah.
a Silco operation. So we got another piece, and this is
Mm.
something that keeps coming up in Arcane story writing. They keep giving you tiny pieces and put together a puzzle with, right? And we have the X, right? We have the purple X, so probably Shimmer. And then to reinforce that notion that this is Silco, we have the zoom in on his face. Downtown. And this is pretty great. They haven't revealed Shavika's arm yet, but they've given us
Yes, I
hints,
love that.
right? They
I
give us
love that.
hints, like she has the shoulder pad there, and she has the shimmer on her face and shit. And
Actually,
she's
I
like,
really like Savika, I have to say. Like there's an interesting contrast between Savika and Vi. Um, I find that like Savika, although she's like on the evil team, I guess, like she she has a lot of like redeeming qualities. Like she has that like obviously like we see that um I guess it's not like so much a spoiler if I commend her loyalty now. Um and yeah, like some of there's some interesting stuff with Savika.
she's also not a champion, so she can die at any time.
Oh.
See, I told you the show is way more fun if you root for for Silco's team, because everyone on that team can die. Adds to the suspense.
And you can't root for Silco's team. He's got a it's like decent idea, terrible execution. You don't go and kill kids like for vengeance on your I don't care how much Vander betrayed him. He doesn't go and try to kill his kids. Like he's not a good guy.
Well, if you don't like kids dying, you may not be a fan of Made in the Abyss. Show they do worse things than kill kids. Still, phenomenal show. You should watch it. But yeah, so this scene, um, what's great about this shot is they've given us those two things, but really the big thing is the shimmer, and so this
So that's like
reinforces.
a blue sort of color. Is that meant to be shimmer?
Well, again, I have color blindness with
Oh, I
greens
see.
and
Does
blues.
it
It
okay,
looks
does it
pink
look
to me.
okay, okay.
But then again, I also
Okay.
have trouble distinguishing between pink and purple, so I'm
Hmm.
not really sure what it is.
Okay. Yeah, like the shimmer is like a very distinct sort of like actually like pinkish purple.
Yeah.
the stuff on Savika's face here is actually like a cyan, like blue, greenish blue, mainly blue. Um, which
Okay.
we
It
really
it
see
looks
associated with
exactly
Shimmer,
like the
but
shimmer stuff to me. But that
gotcha.
may just be because I have that color blindness. Or it may
Yeah,
just be because it's like super small and you're like looking at the highlights.
yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, it makes sense that it's like it could very well be like some sort of side effect or something that she like, because we know that they do like augmentations as well.
yeah.
So maybe like to connect, like maybe it's something to do with like
Well,
a
we know she uses shimmer as a part of
yeah.
her arm. It's probably part of that as a side effect. But once again, this is again they haven't told us. Well, I guess they kind of have, but this is reinforcing that notion that time has passed, and it's setting up mysteries to which we don't have any answers, further adding to the confusion of the scene.
Yeah.
And then your friend downtown's a great line, and we come to the end.
I love this. Like
Yeah,
I just love how they like
right, and this
yeah,
adds
just
to
like
the right
lean.
that, and this is where I think the peak of the confusion comes because they come out like it seems normal, and then they do like this spin, and now your gravity and sense of balance is all sort of warped and off kilter,
Yep.
and now we're diving.
Also, so we know these guys are from Zon. They seem to be like incredibly resourceful to be able to get to like a Piltover facility, be able to just like use that as like a to like launch from, unless it's like a well, actually, we do know that about. Well, I guess we already said it's Echo. Like we do know that
Yep.
about Echo. He does have a way of being able to get around and like um whether he's like crawling through stuff or like he always kind of shows up in the nick of time and stuff.
And the design kind of looks like a sewer as
Yes.
well. So it sort of goes with. And then here's another hint there from Zahn: all the green. But yeah, so we've had this. We're not really sure. We don't know who these people are. Our balance is all weird because they do this weird spin. We don't know really what's going on, but we're diving in. We have Savika, and then he has the shit, the
Lights.
firelights. And so we we had this initial confusion, and we immediately were put back into okay, they're anti-Selko, they're going to fight.
Yeah.
We got all the information we need for the rest of the scene. They're also highly talented. They take out everyone very quickly.
Yep, and they're not actually killing anybody. Well, maybe they are, but like their bombs are
Yeah,
like
they're
that sticky stuff, right?
restraining. Looks
Yeah,
like crystals of some sort.
yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, 5 minutes till they're out of there. Once again, a reference to time.
Tick 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 tick.
Boom, dynamite. Right, and that tells us because if you remember at the end of episode 3, all of their shimmers have been blown up. And their facilities were destroyed. So this tells us, oh, they're back to making it, and they're making it in huge fucking quantities now. Uh, so clearly things have changed beneath Piltover,
Oh
but we
yeah.
don't know exactly what.
Interestingly enough, it hasn't affected Piltover too much.
Yeah, I
Like
think because it's
visually speaking.
I would suggest that there 'cause early in this scene we have her doing bribes and stuff. So it seems like they're interacting in sort of a but what's happening in the scene is they're trying to sell Shimmer abroad. Is what's happening.
Ah, I see. Okay, like potentially through the hex gate.
Yeah, they're using the hex gate because they don't have their own hex gate, and this is why Silco specifically demands unrestricted access to the hex gate from Jace when they negotiate, so they can sell their goods from people to other people as well. So it seems like they've integrated their criminal organization into the sort of Piltoveran business model. and then we'll get more clues later as well. At this point, it's interesting because it doesn't seem like Zahn is a big deal, but we do know that the people there are aware from it, right? She says from your friends downtown.
Hmm.
So obviously the people, the sort of working class Piltover, know about um, know about Stilko and Zahn and them. Which isn't that just how the way things be?
I guess so.
Of course, all the poor people know about how the mafia is interacting with people, but all the rich elite aren't super familiar. But now we have them going down into the hull. I wonder if anything bad could happen there. I'm sure they'll be safe. There's no one down there. And this is also, just a little note. We mentioned this earlier when we talked about like the books in Jace's room and how all of them have like these unique pieces to them. And there's tons of like little details and movements here that are really just added. They don't need to be there, but they enhance the experience. I'm gonna play it while we. But if you look as he comes down, he just doesn't. He takes a pause before he goes to the last bit,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which is a very minor detail, but it adds. Right? He's a little nervous about going down there. He's a bit worried, um, but he has to do it. So after taking a second, he goes down. And you'll see this in
Yep.
like a lot of movies that put like real heart and care into it. They just add these little details that add to the art piece. Uh, that in any other story they would just overlook and it wouldn't need to be there. Right? This is one of the
What do you
things.
think? Do you think a low budget show would have to do to account for things like that? Like I would love to try doing like an indie animated thing at some point in the future. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, obviously, I can't do anything near the quality of this, even probably to the quality of like a cartoon that you'd watch like on TV. Um, I was thinking like, well, like, doesn't that just like isn't the whole charm of this kind of thing being able to add in those little details, like being able to essentially have like a crazy high budget animation in order to add things like that in? Like, I wonder what
Well,
compensation for that could be.
so the other example I was going to think of is Miyazaki's one of Miyazaki's movies, Spirited Away, and the scene where she like puts her shoes away. But in terms of like Arcane and budgeting, I think Arcane was like relatively low budget compared to other pieces of animation.
Really?
Yeah. Uh, and how they say like, and it was right because Arcane was made by like a small French studio. Um, Let me try and find the budget real quick.
I heard it had quite a big budget.
Well, I mean by like animated standards, right? I think it was only like a few million. Um, uh, okay, it was 60 to 80 million euros, right? If I take for 60 to 80 million euros for 6 hours of content. But I wonder if I took like the two, if I so 6 hours is about 2 to 3 Marvel movies. Does that sound about right, Andrew?
Um, wait, what?
How long is like your average Marvel film?
Oh, okay. It's probably just under 2 hours.
Right. Okay. So this is about three
Around
Marvel
2 hours.
films. Right. So this
A Marvel film is like what, like $100 million budget?
so Endgame was 356 to 400 million.
Jeez.
And this was I think 40 to 60 euros, which at the high end is going to be like around 120. So this has 3 times the runtime of Endgame, and about a quarter of the budget.
Oh.
And typically, animated stuff is going to be more expensive than non-animated, because you have to like draw all the. You don't draw all the frames anymore, but all this has like drawings on top of it and whatnot.
But yeah,
Uh,
no, I mean, like, it's a insane amount of work.
if I look at, I was trying to find the budget for, but yeah, I watched Canepa Effect did a bit on this where he talked about it, and one of the things he talked about was how, because it was a small firm and the heads of it worked on it. I never worked on it. They relied heavily on the sort of team and the animators to make the budget make sense, so to speak. And so because they took into account a ton of the animators and because they know animation better than anyone else, and they know how and where you can cut corners, how to make things and do things cheaper, and how to use money more efficiently. That's how they got away with a fair bit of it. Uh, but in either case, you know, usually it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars for your average like movie, and they're doing it for like an entire series for what's probably around 120 mil. So I feel like it's a lot of it is smart money management, combined with
Oh,
actual intent.
smart money management is, my goodness, very
Well, I mean, think about it
something.
this way. I bet if I looked up like the Lion King, uh, the remake, it'd probably have an insane budget, and that's animated, so that's even closer to what this is. Lion King 2019 budget. But how much money did they waste on fucking non-voice actors and just getting celebrities to do it who have no experience like voice acting or anything? Yeah, okay, the Lion King is 260 million. So the Lion King remake is similar to price in this series at a third of the runtime. It's a little more
Goodness.
expensive at a third of the runtime, and how much of that was fucking wasted on like getting John Oliver to do like the voice of their of Zazu instead of getting like an
Yes,
actual voice actor. You know what
absolutely.
no one praises The Lion King for? The goddamn voice
The
acting.
voice does
Everyone
anyone praise it
loves.
for anything?
No, it's realistic lookingness. It's like the only phrase I've heard. But like you don't. Uh, I think the studio makes the position that celebrity name means more income and more better. Whereas, like our two favorite performances so far was Jason Spacek, who has like done video games. That's where all of his work has been before now, mostly. And a young girl who has never done any voice acting before ever. Those were the standout performances that everyone fucking talks about. It's almost like if you get people who are good at doing the specific thing you want them to do, instead of someone who has just brand recognition, you get a better product.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there, like, okay, there is value in like the celebrity, um,
I mean,
I guess
listen, it's.
celebrity voice like they're a celebrity, but not a celebrity voice actor. But
I mean,
there's a
listen.
certain value in that for the marketing. But like, I like even from like a marketing perspective, like it's not it like people don't ultimately care as much about that. I think like if you had the same product with like more talented voice, I'm sure they're talented in whatever they do, but like like you said, it's ultimately like someone made the point on Every Frame of Pause one time about like sure you can remake Star Wars and make a lot of money, but or you could be Arcane and make something that no one's ever heard of, make it extremely high quality and everyone loves it, and you start a franchise.
Yeah, and that's not to say as well that celebrity voice actors are always a bad decision. You know who's a great voice actor who's also an acting celebrity? Mark fucking Hamill.
Oh yeah,
Most people don't
absolutely.
realize that he's the actual voice of the Joker.
Yep.
Right, and if you actually look, because I remember I was when they were coming back to do the new Star Wars, and I heard Mark Hamill was going to be in it. I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Mark Hamill did Star Wars and then just disappeared. What happened to him? And I looked into it, and I found a ton of my favorite fucking voice performances in anime and stuff of all time were all just Mark Hamill the entire time.
Yeah.
Dad never left. He was just hiding in the broom closet.
Wait, what? What's that a reference to?
Uh, it's not a reference to anything, right?
Okay.
The joke is Mark Hamill disappeared, but he wasn't actually gone. He was just hidden
Yeah.
behind the yeah by the animation, right? But you get people, but when Hamill does his voice acting, he does actual voice acting.
Yeah.
When Seth Rogen does voice acting, he's just Seth Rogen. Like, so there's tons of this as well. Like the music, YMS goes over it, but the music in the new Lion King is actually atrocious. Uh,
Yeah,
and that's
that video was interesting. YMS is good stuff.
yeah, I quite like him. You know who didn't skimp out on the music? This show right here produced
This is
its
true.
own original album with completely new
Mm.
songs. That's probably where most of that budget went. Probably not most of it, but probably a good chunk of that budget. And they got Imagine Dragons to write a song for them. That's probably a few milli. So well, main point. If you believe in the heart of the animation and don't let your memes be dreams, you too can become an arcane and find all the animator, all the music balls. That's what I think we should take away
This is
from
true.
this, and then
Absolutely.
become Hokage of the pirates. But let's let's see what these two fine young gentlemen find in this dark hall. I like the touch because you see the monkey and we kind of know that's powder. Some people might miss it,
Should.
but I feel like if you miss the monkey, we're actually working with a comatose patient at this point. There's but
Yeah,
once again we have a
you
great
should
vocal
watch.
performance. That guy genuinely sounds afraid.
Absolutely. Yeah, this dude's great too.
Everyone in this film is fucking great.
There's
Everyone
only
in the show.
one there's only one voice actor that I don't like in this whole
Is it
show.
Marcus?
Oh no, Marcus is fine. I
I
changed
think
my
you
mind.
mentioned in an earlier show that you didn't like Marcus's voice acting.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think he's fine. He's
then
fine.
whose don't you like?
He doesn't appear until much later. He's not a very major character.
Okay.
Forget his name. Oh yeah, I remember his name is Finn.
Oh, okay, yeah, the accent guy.
Yes. It's not because of the accent. It's
I
because
know.
of the
Fair enough. I wasn't. I don't think he had the greatest performance. Yeah, but I didn't think his performance was bad. But compared to a lot of the performances we've seen throughout the show, it's not like stellar.
actually there was I don't want I'm gonna probably like rip on by way too much because she's fine. She's a great character.
Because she's a
But
woman.
yeah, because she's a woman. That's why I was
Hater.
saying a lot of good things about Savika earlier. um, but I find that Vi's occasionally she has like some slightly strange delivery of like you expect like her to emphasize a certain word, but she emphasizes the other word, and it's like like I remember noticing it like a couple times, and like why not just say it like that? But whatever, nitpick. It doesn't matter.
Pointing out when you
Oh
see it
well, I'll
next.
point out when we get to it.
But yes, who could be the Monkey Man, Andrew? We have no idea who it could possibly be. Um,
Milo, back from the dead.
but also
Back from the dead.
once again, we have this slow reveal. We have them come down, tripwire, typically associated with bombs. The shore closes. We see a giant monkey. My neurons are activating.
Are?
And this is a nice touch. They have like they're trying to open it up, but it's like super quiet on the outside, and Savika notices.
Yeah. Vika doesn't seem particularly enthusiastic about that with her
Yeah, she doesn't really
furrowed
like
brow.
Jinx, which is
No,
a nice setup because we'll see how much she doesn't like her later. But this is really
absolutely.
setting up the it's adding to the mystery because they're like scared of something, and you'd think Savika would be happy that they're getting fucked with, but
Exactly, right? It'd be like, good. I think
no,
Savika might have been kept out of the loop on something here.
could be. I'm not sure. We can talk about when the conversation with Silco comes up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my interpretation is that she just doesn't like Jinx, and she's like, "Oh fuck this is going to become a whole thing, isn't it? God fucking damn!" And it does. It becomes a whole fucking thing. And then another puzzle piece. She's here, right? We now know it's a femoid,
Species.
right? And they're lighting up. Um, and still, it's still reinforcing that aura of fear that is in this scene. Drawing weapons, closing in very slowly. And then all of our she's going to run across the screen, but all the shots of them as we start moving in towards Jinx's movements are shots of them being watched, which sort of adds a layer to the
Mm,
creepiness. And you notice the twin tails in that scene.
yeah. Boom.
Boom, dynamite.
Quick.
And what? Oh, and once again, those chompers look a lot like both the bomb she made, and the chompy guys from their playhouse.
Zombie guys from their playhouse?
Yeah, remember in the second episode where like they throw a guy through the window, and then Powder escapes by making the jaws clamp down shut on Marcus's arm.
Oh,
Remember?
I don't remember that.
Remember, Arbiter? Remember?
I do not remember that.
Well, if you want, you can go back and watch our discussion of episode 2,
Well,
where I
the whole
point out.
friggin' thing.
I think too. I've been putting chapters in them, but I think I haven't put in any since like part 2 of episode 2. I just got behind on that.
It's fine.
And then we have the and once again, I don't know if you caught that. Let's mute it and go back. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's jump. It's 1, 2, 3. Right, we have we'll have a multiple shot of the explosion from a ton of different angles, kind of like in episode 3 where they did the exact same thing last time she blew something. But this time is different, Andrew. This time she doesn't kill her friends, kills the people she's trying to kill. We have smoke, right, which once again serves to hide Powder what she looks like. We're only getting pieces once again. It's also reminiscent of how Silco appears in episode 3, where he comes out of the smoke.
Hmm.
And now we get to see her for the first time. I like her character design. She looks super cute and innocent. What do you think? Do you like her character design?
Yeah, I actually really like her character design. I don't like it when she after episode would be 8? No, 7? I quite like it here.
So,
Like how she like walks in kind of like
even,
pushed over, like peeking in. It's interesting. It's like, yeah, like what's the problem here? Like, everyone okay? Like, yeah, actually, no, you're gonna die too.
Okay, so you're saying that she doesn't look super great after taking a bomb to the face. That's your contribution.
Yeah,
After she
like,
gets real fucked up suddenly.
yeah, she's she looks a lot more evil. It's fitting. I just don't like
Yeah.
it because I don't like that Powder is evil.
But yeah,
Sad.
this is a cool. She comes out. We see the age, and we see the super long fucking braided pigtails.
Yeah, impressive.
And then she has this great switch from the super innocent face to when she starts killing everyone, which will be right now. And originally, fun fact, that scene of her coming out of the smoke was originally what I was wanted to use for our what the fuck do you call it? You know that
Overlay?
what?
Overlay.
Yeah, the for originally we wanted for the overlay, but it was a bit hard to find that one that was already like on Google or whatever. So I just went with this one. It had more colors too, so it worked out a bit better, I think. Right. And here's something important to note: Jinx probably knows that this, almost certainly knows this is Echo, right? Because she has that line about him being the boy's savior in the earlier in episode 7. So she clearly knows who he is and what he's been up to. Right? Do you disagree with that analysis? Before I continue on.
Go ahead.
Right. So this is why one of the reasons I've said that Vi's plan is sort of doomed from the start, uh, and why putting us here in this time skip was a good idea to sort of have us go through it with Vi, because at this point in the story, if we had stuck around, we would have seen Powder attempting to kill her like friend, her old friends, like throughout
Yeah.
this whole time, and how she's changed as a person. Whereas we don't really know who this character is. And we
Yeah.
don't know that she's willing to kill Echo because at this point we don't know that this is Echo. And
Do we
uh,
know if she knows that it's Echo?
she probably knows this is Echo. I would say almost certainly because she knows what Echo's been doing. Right? She calls him the boy savior,
Uh,
and so if she knows what he's been doing, and she knows, like, if she knows what that he has, this whole, she knows he's leading a group of some sort. And I don't know any other groups beside the Firelight she could think that she was in charge of. As well, she just
Yeah.
has to like see him with the hoverboard once or whatnot. And Echo talks about how you can't change her. So we can assume that there's been some back and forth between them where he's tried to get her to like leave Silco and it's not worked. So I would say it is almost, I would say like with 99% certainty that she definitely knows that this is Echo.
Yeah, that's completely fair. That sucks. That sucks, man.
Yeah, a lot of this
Uh,
sucks, Andrew. That's kind of the.
I know. It's like it's crunchy though. It's like
But this is also why
pains
Vi.
my soul.
This is one of two reasons why Vi's plan is kind of doomed to failure. One, Vi doesn't doesn't real. Well, the big issue is Vi doesn't realize who or I guess JP at this point doesn't really know who she is, and so she can never really talk to her. This is, for all intents and purposes, a stranger, and we would know that and know how different she is, and that she is this almost entirely different person now, if we had gone through Jinx's journey with her. But by coming in at this point, and following, I guess, Vi's journey, we don't really know who this person is, who JP is, and so we, along with Vi, discover who she is over the course of the next two arcs. Uh, and this is probably one of the big reasons why they've probably one of the big reasons they made that decision to make Echo anonymous for most of the arc. Because if we saw at this point someone who we knew to be Echo, and someone who and Jinx fighting, and Jinx trying to kill Echo, that might create a realization that she's not coming back. Um, yeah, that's kind of what I want to say on this scene. Andrew, did you want to add anything else?
Oh, that covers it all well.
Andrew,
Hmm.
I promise, even if I become a super assassin for a drug dealing kingpin, I promise not to try and kill you with an explosive, because that's not
Well,
what friends do.
Max,
You know, I was kind of
I won't make
expecting
any
you to say, I
promises.
also promise I won't blow you up with explosives, but, you know, apparently not. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, how can I make promises about future that I can't possibly see?
Listen, all I'm saying is that sometimes kids need to die, and, and someone's got to be the one to take them out.
Oh my gosh.
And there's Batman, the Batman, not the Batman, Andrew, the Batman, not Batman, Batman, but a Batman. You know, man,
M-
Bat.
the man bat.
No, not Man Bat. He's a man. No, Man Bat, not Man Bat. The Man Bat, Batman. The Man Bat, Batman. It is.
Man who is
There is
bat-like
legitimately
in futures.
there is legitimately a Batman villain called Man Bat.
No, I'm somewhat aware that that's a thing.
But yeah, this is a pretty cool fight scene, right? Which is nice because we only get like a couple of like League of Legends champion style fights, and this is probably one of the closest to them. Aside from the sad part of her killing all these people that he clearly cares about, but yeah. And so this is something I wanted to ask you because I noticed a lot of people get confused after this scene about whether or not this is Vi. Did you realize this was not Vi the first time you saw it?
It did not. I was like, "What?" It like, because my first thought was, "Oh, it's just, like, a completely, like, her, like, tripping." Um, and I expected them to just be like, "This is this is gonna it's gonna cut, and it's gonna look like someone completely different," but I'm like, "No, that keeps on looking like hi." I didn't quite notice the difference enough, and then I'm like I was like, I knew what Vi was, up to at this time,
Yeah, we'll
and I
pause
kinda
on and
realized later.
we'll talk about how similar they are. But I think
Yeah.
that's an intentional choice. I think it's a good choice
Yeah.
because
No, for sure, for sure.
Jinx is confused at this point, right?
Yes.
And so by doing it this way, where it leaves the audience confused too, really allows us to sort of understand what she's seeing and what she's thinking at the moment, right? Let's right. That's it's different, but that's very similar. I'm looking because the
Yeah.
stream's behind. I can see Vi's face on my one screen and this face on the other,
Mm.
and they're close. Her face is a little less round.
Yeah,
Um,
the difference that I can notice is mainly, like, in the hair, like, Vi's hair is more the Vi that she remembered, the hair was more kind of, like, to the side,
yeah,
to the back, and then this one's more kinda shaggy,
and
but
the nose
Vi's
is different.
it
There's a mark on the bridge, but also
yes,
we haven't
but
seen
the
her for 6 years, so she might look a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
different.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other confusing at the when we do see Vi, her hair is a lot more like that, a lot
Yeah.
more kinda like somewhat shaggy like that.
But yeah,
Um,
I think having her so close to what Vi would look like, one, it makes sense why Jinx would get confused, or have this sort of traumatic reaction, and two, allows us to sort of understand what she's going through at the moment. And that's probably why they added the line with Silco. One of the reasons probably they added the line like your sister's dead, you know that as well as I do. Sort of till the okay, just to clear up, he is gone. But also, we can talk a bit about when we get there. It also reinforces that Silco sort of acts as a bit of an arbiter of truth for
yeah.
JP here. But let's look through the flashbacks. The scrolling is a Right, the drawing and markings, I think, are an excellent addition. It adds to the chaos of the
Hmm,
memories and is perfectly in line with who Jinx is. It's on
absolutely.
brand, so to speak.
And
Um,
would it be like, is Jinx like actually like schizophrenic? Because like she does hear voices. Like that's kind of like, I don't know if like, I don't know how things look like when schizophrenic people like see things that that aren't there.
so they can
Um,
have visual hallucinations and auditory hallucinations. Um, I'm not sure if they've released a thing where they say what they were going for. Then again, death of the author, it may not matter to. But I've heard an interesting analysis of BPD, borderline personality disorder, which was a compelling argument. Schizophrenia isn't super far gone. Um, but I feel like I don't know how many. And we know she suffers from auditory and visual hallucinations. So schizophrenia is probably a it's a good guess, I think. So I'm not sure what other symptoms also present in hallucinations. Uh, but I would say it's definitely a good guess as to what she has. And also, I mean, it could be a mixture of things. She could have schizophrenia and BPD and a couple of other stuff, right? We're not mental health experts, uh, and it's kind of hard to but yeah, I'm saying it's a good guess, and it wouldn't surprise me if she had some kind of schizophrenia. Um, oh, I'm trying to remember because if schizophrenia is genetic or behavioral, I think it can be both. I'm not entirely sure. You can Google it.
I have been googling it.
Oh, what did you find?
Nothing official, but different analyses. Mental disorders in fiction Wikipedia page says Hans Trust Jinx suffers from BPD, PTSD, and schizophrenia. There's another article somewhere saying heavily implied to suffer from schizophrenia, which is hamplainecrossover.org. So it's just probably
And
something.
I believe
Um,
post-traumatic stress disorder also comes with hallucinations. I think it's a little different though. The way I've heard it described is not that so like the way she's seeing it is that this section here is probably mostly PTSD, as opposed to when she's working in the shop and Milo appears or when she hears them talking. The way I've heard it explained is that with post traumatic stress disorder, you're not seeing like hallucinations that are there in the current present with you, but you're like taken back to that previous moment in history. Uh, that's what I've heard anyway. I've never had PTSD, so I can't speak from experience. But that's what I've read on the subject. So schizophrenia is sort of in the present, whereas post traumatic stress takes you back into the past, and you sort of I don't know if you exactly think. I've heard it's been described. I've heard it described as like a kind of like a dream state kind of thing, where you're in the past, even though you're, for all intents and purposes, you're kind of in the past, even though you know what's going to happen in the future. Uh, Like most mental disorders, I imagine stuff gets mixed up pretty heavily uh, in their head when it happens. But I've never had any of those three, as far as I'm aware. So I can't give any personal experience. But yeah, BPD was one I heard specifically as it relates to the scene where she talks with Stilko. How she doesn't seem to have like a good. She doesn't have very many like boundaries.
yeah, like distinctions between like reality and like other
And that's why a
she's
lot of people get
told
real
and what she
weirded out
sees.
by Silco, the relationship with her, because they get very close, like physically speaking, and so people misinterpret it sometimes as like a sexual thing, which I don't think it is. I think it's part of
Oh
the
no,
BPD.
absolutely not. Oh, and not even that. It's just like I don't know. Like, how old is Jinx right now? Like, is she an adult or is she still like
Um, so I've heard different
older
things.
teen?
I went through the show interpreting that she is 15 at this point. That's how I view the show. I think
Oh,
canonically she is supposed to be older though.
okay.
But right, the I always thought she was 9 pre time skip, 6-year time skip makes her 15.
Yeah, that
But
makes
I
sense.
but I think canonically she's 12 before time skip
Oh,
and then 18 here.
okay. It's confirmed to be 6 years.
I think so.
Okay.
It's close to that. It's like 5 or 6. I can Google it for you. How old is Jinx post time skip?
Well, they don't give clear. They give like ranges.
Uh, yeah. Okay. So in Act One is around 10 to 11 years old, making her an 18-year-old girl after time skip. 6 to 7 years. So she
Hmm.
was around 9 to 12 prior to time skip. It was 6 to 7 years time skip. So I'm fine with my 9 to 15. That's how I. That's what makes sense to me. Did you think similarly, or did you have a radically different interpretation of the ages?
Um. Well, I think the 11, 12 to 18 is more makes more sense.
Alright. Oh,
I wasn't sure how old she. I thought she was around 10. Um. Come to think of it, yeah, I think. But yeah, she could be anywhere between like 9 and 12, to be honest, in the pre-time skip.
either way,
I
I
thought
don't think
Vi was like 16.
I thought she was. So I interpreted it as her 15 pre time skip, then 20 after time skip.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a couple years isn't going to make that huge of a difference.
No, but yeah, it's just wondering.
Yeah. And of course, there's something to say about the moments she's remembering in these scenes. Let's mute it. No. Uh, da-da-da. I think we skipped the first one, but all of them are moments of her being abandoned by Vi. And then the last thing she hears is, "I want to go. You're not ready." And so clearly, her memories of Vi at this point are all like of abandonment and and depression and sorrow and horribleness. Was there anything further you want to add, or should we finish up this scene?
Let's go.
And then, uh, she clearly that's a like a freeze mechanic, not mechanic, but like a freeze response. And then when she finally breaks out of it, first thing she does, a la Vi, start thro- start throwing hands metaphorically. She starts fighting. Uh, so we have that sort of that violent streak running through the family, so to speak. But obviously, like a lot of mental pain. She's trying to get rid of it by any means necessary. To the point where I don't think it's ever stated, but it seems like Echo cares about this girl a great deal. I've interpreted it like it's some kind of girlfriend. I don't know if you thought the same way.
I
Be-
didn't I didn't even think of that. Yeah, interesting.
right? Because he reacts far more negatively to. Uh, he does react negatively to the people at the bottom dying, but I feel like this outrage is greater than the previous ones, which indicates to me sort of a special relationship.
Hmm.
But that might just be me reading into it. Because he's gonna go for her after this. In either case, Jinx has no problem killing Echo's friends and possibly girlfriends.
Yeah, and
But,
Echo himself.
right? Which, while we don't actually know this at this point, sort of reinforces how different her character has become, and lends to my assertion that Vi was never going to be able to quote unquote save her.
I'd be really curious about how their first conversation after that event would have been.
I think the
Go and her.
I think the music video for the show has like some extra stuff between for what's the Imagine Dragons song, Enemy, has some extra stuff between Echo and Jinx, but it happens 3 times skip, I think. Right, and it's just like the breathing and how he's acting comparatively more irrationally and seems very upset was what made me interpret that relationship in the way I
Yeah,
did.
that makes sense because like time's up too, right? Like he should get out of there.
Yeah. The smart move is to leave. Unfortunately, he has a good second in commands. Who is going to get her out of there. Also, right. Uh, one, good that we have a nice second in command who can help him out. Two, very upset about something, Andrew. Keep hearing people talking about how Jinx is bringing out the machine gun. Jinx says,
That
as
come
far as
from?
I'm aware, never owned a machine gun. I don't think they have any intention of giving her a machine gun. I don't know where this talk of a machine gun has come from, Andrew. Uh,
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say like, wait a second, like where'd she pull that out from? Like came in
this
here with like bombs and a gun, like a pistol. All of a sudden, brrrah, like where did that come from?
it's been there. This, Andrew, is not a machine gun.
A gun.
The Gatling gun. Gatling guns have rotating barrels. Machine guns do not.
But
Right?
I'm just where'd she pull it out from though? Like she didn't. Did she have it?
Yeah, she had it the entire time. Go back
Oh,
and take a look. Right, I'll mute it. But yeah, you can see it. It's on her hip. You see the band there. Or
oh, okay.
right. Let's get a shot of her from like the side so we can see it a bit better. Right, you can see it on our back a little bit. But
Okay.
there it is.
Okay.
See?
Okay. All right. I'm. I stand corrected.
Don't worry, I thought the same thing too when I first saw it. I'm like, wait a second, where'd that come from? But yeah,
Okay, let's get moving with this.
right.
Getting.
And this is a nice shot too because this is the moment where she's screaming and shooting everyone. But that's all fear. That's fear, baby.
But
Nothing but
yeah, she
fear.
is not. She's not happy.
And she's kind of just shooting wildly, hitting everyone, which really says a bit about her mental state. Oh, I'm that down on my end. And this is just a cool shot, right? The shot didn't need to be in here, but it adds like a really cool moment where we see like the barrels going around. And you can notice her dead fucking body in the scope of it. Right, so we have this scene here. I'll pause it there. So Savika says she's supposed to guard the cargo. Someone who gets Savika knew she was there. Um, we also get reinforced like Savika's very clearly upset with Jinx. And so we get the puzzle pieces that she doesn't like Jinx very much. And then Jinx's response to getting called out uh, is that smile. That does not look like a very mentally sound person. Anything you want to add before we move on to the next section?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Hey, notice she smiles, and after she looks away, she gets very angry with Savika. I don't know if you got that, but But yeah,
I mean, I interpreted that as like you can be pissed at me. Let's hear what Silco has to say. Like, you sure you're gonna be pissed at me? Like,
I think Jinx is trying to control her emotions at the moment, and that's why she does the the smile because she's clearly very angry. But now that she doesn't need to because she's no longer looking at her, sees sort of her true expression
maybe,
come out.
maybe.
Right, I think the smile is a bit of a taunt and bit of a Savika's angry at her, and Jinx is kind of angry at Savika for being angry at her. Or a taunt's like, "What the?" Smiles like, "What the fuck you gonna do, bitch?" And so it was her attempt to sort of right because we have the framing here where she's dominating over her, like towering over her, and that's her attempt to
Yeah,
reclaim power in the interaction.
yeah.
And then once it's no longer right, and there we go.
Beautiful Piltover.
Right, so let's do to when she sees Silco next. Also, some clear personality difference in that part. We have Victor, who's like just working. That's all he ever
Yes.
does. And Jace is just
Yep.
relaxed, reclining on the chair. Victor's worried about everything. He's like, "Nah, bro, nah, fam, I got this." So we start to see it's a little bit of characterization.
Sure. And
Where
even in like the posture too. Well,
yeah, which is
like
why
Jay specifically.
we talk about when we talk about our writing. One things I always say is try to make sure your scene uh does like anytime you write something, try to make it do three things. And so one, this establishes some of the history that's happened up to this point in the past 5 or 6 years. Right, we've done everything the council's asked. We get a
Yeah.
bunch of exposition.
That like Jace has kind of like bigger dreams than than even the Hex Gate, like something that to him is to both of them is more important maybe.
Two, we get some
Interesting at the very least.
characterization, so it's doing two things at once. And three, it's telling us about what the central conflict is going to be for this for the central conflict is going to be for this episode. Whether or not we what was it they said back in no that was too far.
Well, if Heimerdinger will let us
Yeah,
reveal
yep,
the new tech.
yeah. So we have a conflict being created. We have some characterization and we have exposition. Three things in one sort of conversation. And then we have a reference to the time passing with the one eye blind. It's a Pog or Pogo or something.
Punchy crystals.
And in addition to this being like their scene of addressing their conflict of whether or not they have something to show off, it's also showing how things have changed over the past 6 years or 5 years. Yeah, 6 years. Almost six. Reinforcing
Merman.
that theme of change.
Um, love the effects of of
Yeah.
the hex stuff.
And once again, we got tiny details. If you look at the if you look, we can. This could have just been like just a blue circle, but they've put like all these effects like mist and whatnot
Oh,
into it.
yeah, yeah. The interior is shifting,
Yeah.
glowing.
which is a nice added effect that didn't need to be there, but they added it because it looked better and was. And also sort of, we don't really know what's in it. It's so there's a sort of magic-y goop, this foreign magic-y goop we don't understand. It's actually more of a gas than a goop. Still. So I'm sure, because it's absolutely safe, all of the things they create with it will definitely be safe also. Isn't that right, Andrew?
100%. In fact, maybe, possibly. Also, maybe not. So this is interesting because I looked up the Victor design in the game, and the little useful, helpful tool that he's wearing for helping people. Good
Yeah.
work.
So this is great if you're like a League player because you know exactly what's happening with everything. Right, as soon as Jace picked up the gauntlet, I'm like, oh, okay, I know where this story's going. I know exactly who's going to wear a pair of these. Uh, which is what I said about like the fan service giving nods to the fans and whatnot. Right, it's not done in this overly way where it harms like the story. It's just like a nice little allow it to reward the longtime players. Uh,
Interesting.
and also is a great way because everything in Arcane is interconnected. And it's one of the great aspects of the show. We have a way to naturally interconnect how Vi will get her gauntlets to our intrepid inventors. I like. I mean, it's fun. It's a little silly, but I like how like they come with these inventions, like this big gauntlet that can wreck rocks. It's like, yeah, no, it's for the miners. I can't possibly foresee how this could have any negative consequences, or anyone could misuse such a thing. And then, then
Yeah.
fucking Victor has a goddamn laser. It's for the artisans. He's- like I'd be more like these are fucking
Like,
weapons.
but
These are clearly
yeah.
weapons, right? And
Well,
it's no
I don't know,
wonder.
man. I mean, like you could show someone like, hey, here's a pickaxe. Like, oh man, I smashed some rocks with this. I could also like destroy a man's whole life with this.
Sure. Like I'm not saying that these. I can see why they would make the things they do, right? But I just because there's this the fact that they're all actually just legitimately also weapons makes this argument that's about to occur uh much more reasonable on Heimerdinger's side. I think. I just find it a bit funny,
Oh,
right?
for
The
sure.
the two big things that they invented that they're showing off. It's like, oh, this giant laser that can shoot through fucking rocks and metal for our artificers. Like, of course, we all know exactly what Heimerdinger's going to say. Should we give big fuck off lasers to our populace? I wonder what Heimerdinger's response could possibly be. That probably didn't help.
Yep.
I think after a decade of game development, you'll have your next game done.
That was the case, I wouldn't be making games.
But that's kind of the point of the scene, isn't it? Like, he comes in with
Absolutely.
after a decade of research. Like that's an eighth of their life
Yeah.
on average, right? Humans lives
And
about 80 years.
I
It's
really like the line. Well, I mean, I guess it's an obvious line from later when he's like, "Well, humans don't live for centuries."
right, and
Yeah,
then
like
this
when
is
the conflict kind of gets pushed to its precipice.
yeah. There's a manga. I haven't read it, but it was recommended to me. But it's about an elf, and it's just her going through the world. But of course, she lives a super long time, and it's sort of a and there's a great. So how it opens is she goes on this quest to save the world from the Demon King or whatever, and they win. They go back and retire, and then at the big hero's funeral, she meets like the young kid who went with them, who's like this old man now, and she realizes like she was such an important part of these people's lives, but this is someone she like met in a moment in her life, and such a minor part of it. And similarly, I imagine it's similar for Heimendinger, right? Like he says, a decade for him is like a week or a month for them. For fucking Victor is like on the precipice of death. This whole series, so he has even less. At this point, he's probably not going to last a decade. So there's you're right in that it really sets up the big divide between Jace and Heimerdinger that's going to come,
Hmm.
where Heimerdinger is of the position, uh, we have to be careful because if we're not, people will die. And Jace, who's like, we have to move fast because if we don't, people will die.
Absolutely.
And neither can understand each other's perspectives because neither have an understanding of life similar to each other's.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do really like, and I have to say though, like I'm much more inclined to agree with Jace about this than Heimerdinger. I think Jace is a lot more in the right. Um, that's like I guess like the way that uh the conflict kind of appears in my mind, like as opposed to like there's a lot going on with like the characters and stuff, and it's really interesting. But yeah, like I yeah, I guess I think about that. I'm watching the show of like how how it ultimately I kind of like process it in my head. You know, who's who I think makes more sense, I guess.
That's a little surprising. I thought you
It's
would side more with Heimerdinger, if I'm honest.
really, you think so?
Yeah, well,
You don't want to
Heimerdinger,
wait 10 years to like.
well,
Mm,
obviously, neither of them are like 100% right. Right. I think we can both agree that Jace makes some bad decisions and Heimerdinger makes some
absolutely.
bad decisions. Right. Because you're saying which the one you think is most right. And I thought you would have probably sided with Heimerdinger more on principle. Because his whole thing is the we shouldn't do untested things. We should stick with what works and then slowly implement new changes. And not try all these new and untested things, which at its heart is sort of the basic idea behind mo- most forms of conservatism. Whereas Jace is like, we got to completely change the order of things. You have to create a new world order.
I don't think that's at all what's going on.
No,
And I don't think there's any. I don't think that is right, or like I don't think like on principle like you have to go with like things that are like really really like tried and true and whatever. I think it's a case by case.
sure, but
Um,
I'm saying I would suspect you would have a more affinity to use tradition than a new form of a new cultural form.
yeah, but when it comes to technology, when it comes, well, like I guess that depends as well. But and it doesn't come down so much to what they're doing as like the character like um I think Jace is like more genuine in his approach, I guess, if that makes sense. I think Heimerdinger is a little bit like prideful.
Yeah, I can see
Um
what you're saying.
yeah. So like I think Jace is a lot more like in the heart, I guess, like at this point. And Heimerdinger is very much like I'm gonna make sure like I'm like
I can see
You're
that
your own
because
man, but I'm still like your teacher. Like,
Jace has that line, "What is your plan to fix things?"
yeah,
And Heimerdinger doesn't have a plan. At the very
yeah,
least, good or bad, Jace has a plan.
yeah.
Arthur, I have a plan. That's uh, that's my best Dutch impression from
Okay.
Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, like it's not like, you know, they're not talking about like changing like morality and like updating like doctrine or something like that. They're talking about like practical like prudential judgments, right? So that's very much on the level of like, that's the kind of stuff that you can and probably should argue about and discuss and figure out. So that's why I'm drawn more to Jace's, because he's a lot more. I'm generally a lot more in favor of like, for better or for worse, just like kind of like get like doing something rather than being like, oh well, let's like deliberate and like never get it done. Like I'd rather do something, potentially like make a mistake, rather than worry about like,
There's
let's
a
deal with like all the things that could possibly go wrong, I guess.
there's a line in Starship Troopers you might like. It's better to make a good decision now than a great decision in hindsight, or it was something like that. It's better to make
Yeah,
a
100%.
non-perfect decision on the ground than to not make a decision and come up with a perfect one way too late. Which is the essence of the quote. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. So basically, what you're saying is we should give everyone a death laser.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just imagining like Oprah, and you get a death laser, and you get a death laser. Everyone goes home with a death laser. You got one out of touch statement. A decade zips past you in the blink of an eye.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong.
I imagine for him that's true. I don't think, and I don't think that's true for almost any human, even if they're like 100 years old. That's still like a tenth of your life. Especially not for two 20-year-olds. Especially not for a 20-year-old on the brink of death.
Yeah.
So,
But well, yes, but also like, well, I guess it's completely different for Heimerdinger compared to like us and stuff. But like, if you think about like, oh my gosh, like when we were 15 or whatever, like, oh, that was like, oh, I wouldn't say it feels like a blink of an eye or something, but it's like when you're 15, it's like I can't possibly imagine being 25.
well, I, that'd be the time between 15 and 25 passed in the blink of an eye. So college passed in the blink of an eye, and probably in high school and college, both like an eye, both like a blink.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, like the older people get, the more they talk about how fast they
Yeah,
feel like time passed and stuff
right.
like
But
that.
that's because time as a fraction keeps getting smaller.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah,
I don't think you would meet a 100-year-old person who would describe like 10-year-old a decade is going by fast, right? A decade is
yeah,
a pretty long.
and
I feel like you got to be
Heimerdinger
doing hundreds of years before you start measuring things.
Heimerdinger is absolutely like bringing in his, his life, his species life,
Yeah,
applying his species to like their species, which I think is really interesting. The fact that that's like, I'm really glad that that's kind of like brought back to him. It's like Heimerdinger, like you're not exactly right about this. Like you're wise and stuff, but like it's like an interesting case of like, usually an older person is gonna have the wisdom, to kind of like, but not always, and oftentimes no. Like, um yeah, like, yeah, there's a like right now there's a lot of like the whole thing of like, well, I won't tangent this, but like it's just interesting. I like how, I do like that. Like I just like that he's like, it's more than just, like I've seen history and stuff. It's also like I'm not even the same species as you. I'm not thinking the way you think.
You know how many folds my brain has. You're all playing 2D chess. I'm in a whole nother. But yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying, that, and I agree. But right, and there's Victor. Like, if we don't do anything now, people will suffer. And Hymen's
Yes.
response is going to be, if we do things now, people will suffer. And this is Victor wants to go like this, convince him. Jace kind of realizes, Jace being the people person, realizes that they're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Which kind of shows his earlier confidence was a little misplaced. Might be a bit too big for his britches sometimes. Now,
Bum 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 bum.
I think we can. I think we can mute this whole section because it's just the music playing. It's good music, right? Boom, 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 boom. Adds to the suspense. But
Yeah.
this is kind of a nice way to do this sort of scene, right? In here, I want to criticize something that might be a show that you like.
Oh.
In Sherlock kind of explains all the clues to you directly and why they're important. At least
Mm.
in the BBC version. Whereas,
I didn't like Sherlock that much.
oh, okay, never mind then. But
Never
this
found
time,
anyone.
we're showing she's discovering clues, and we're right. This whole section's muted because we don't need to hear anything. We're seeing the clues as she sees. Of course, we know what happens because we were there,
Yeah.
but she wasn't. But we can see her putting the pieces together without her having to explain how she's doing it.
Yeah, and it characterizes her like observance, her observantness. I don't know how you'd say it, but her ability to assess and analyze what's going on here.
And it shows she's a good
Skills.
detective. Follows the blood, finds him.
Yes.
I didn't do nothing. I'm a good boy.
Yeah.
Where is Osama bin Laden? Where is he?
Where's Rachel?
Where's Rachel?
Oh, this mother's this guy.
This is, of course, the reveal of Marcus. Your favorite character who you agree entirely with. Is that not correct?
Oh man, he's the best.
But we immediately see that he's now sheriff,
Yep.
which is a piece of a puzzle. We're starting to put things together, Andrew. We're starting to see the matrix.
I don't even see the characters. All I see is code.
All I see is the binary. And that's why I was canceled. But
Oh. Yeah,
but,
that's the worst thing that you said.
but
between the two of us, yeah, on the show.
but but yeah, he comes in and he gives a stern talking to, which tells us, which reinforces the fact that he is now the sheriff. But also gives us an indication, like, hold on a second, why doesn't he want her questioning? Oh no, I think we figured out this puzzle piece, Andrew.
Think so. I think Marcus wants to tie up loose ends.
Yeah.
Oof. And he brings it like he makes it like personal, sort of like personal, like to her conflict, right? Like, oh, you're used to getting what you want. Well, it's not like that's not entirely true. And
Look at me.
also,
Look at me. I am the captain.
yeah, but like him telling her like you're used to getting what you want. We know that it is to a point true, but also not really because um Caitlin's parents kind of interfere with what she does want to do. Um, but also at the same time get her the resources to get what she would want.
Yeah,
Well, that's interesting.
I feel
It's
like
like a
if we went to a working class job like a construction site and you said, "Listen, I don't always get what I want. I'd like to be out here in the sun building stuff with you, but my mom makes me stay in the desk job inside." I
yeah,
don't think
yeah.
that would play very well with the construction workers.
No, for
Oh
sure.
god, I feel so bad for you having to stay inside in the air conditioning. Oh, right, but it does reinforce because we this is sort of how all the cops see her, right? We get that
Yeah,
combo later where she's talking, "Don't you have a cocktail party to go to, Kiraman?" So partially, this is this sets up that's uh, the view of the enforcers towards her. But also, what I think he's doing here is, um, it's sort of branding her an outsider. Uh, so people won't be asking why he doesn't want to question the fucking witness,
yeah.
because he's just going to send him to Stillwater. And so she's like, "Oh, I can totally do this and get this guy, and we can figure out who it is." It's like, "Oh, you guys going to trust the Kira men?" Right? So I think this is part of part of his attempt to like discredit her and put her down in
Yeah.
front of the troops, so to speak. That was a nice that was a well designed look. I don't know if she has that
Yeah, go back to it.
like she has
Okay.
a bit of an annoyed expression. But yeah, and now we get into the song.
Yeah, not the
I
playground anymore.
Yeah, well, it's Silco's playground. And so I think the song does a really great job reflecting it. You've heard the song now. So I'm just going to mute it so we don't get distracted
Sure,
by the music. That's all right with you.
sure.
But once again, this song has sort of a lot of the same qualities Playground does have. Uh, it has sort of that. Well, let's talk about the visuals and let's talk about the music. So we now have like this very bright, and in some places, go back here. The underground has very clearly changed. Got all these neon
Yes, very
signs,
clearly.
and we have a wealthy class, right? Like that
Yeah.
dude's straight up in a top hat,
Yeah.
the shoe
That's like
shine going.
the first thing I noticed is like this place is like cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, it's cleaned up. There's
Also, not
clearly money
exactly.
flowing through, right? In Vander's underground, everyone was poor, but everyone was poor together. Whereas
Yeah.
Silco has uh, raised them out of poverty, but in doing so has created a large class divide. And so we see like entertainment, we
Literally
see
idol worship there. Like
yeah,
I was like it
see the
was
fur
interesting.
coats.
Yeah.
We see right
Uh,
up in Piltover, they were doing the cars for Progress Day. They got cars down here too.
yeah.
Another
You've
top hat.
got like you got like the rich people and you got like guy lugging a big bottle of like green goop or something on his back. Like basically like a hazmat suit on, like that mask.
Right,
Very much like a division there.
right, and we come to Silco's taking over the last drop, and you'll notice the last drop forms an eye with all the glowies bits.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about the music a little bit uh, because we're about to go into the last drop, and we'll talk about that, and we'll do our last scene before we close out. But the
What's this song called?
Dirty Little Animals. It's by someone named Bones UK. Uh, but in the song, this song, um, ugh, Dirty Little Animals and Playground deal with a lot of the same themes and idea. Right? It has that sort of intoxicated. This one is filled more with a sort of a club beat to it, which makes sense given the imagery we're going to see when we go in. But once again, we have these sorts of lyrics that has this sort of intoxicating feel to them, much like Playground did. Whereas when Playground had this sort of secretive, subtle come hither. Uh, Dirty Little Animals more goes into this sort of ecstasy-ish, um, hedonistic uh, intoxication, right? Uh, the pre-chorus, I never felt like this before. I think I might just want some more, right? Makes your blood and then makes your blood run hot, makes your spit taste sweet, makes you feel more alive than you have ever been, right? And a lot of it's drug related imagery. I think that's how I
Mm,
interpreted a lot of it, which makes sense because this
yeah.
is how he's controlling the underground. And I think I'm not sure if we saw it or not, but I think we see it in episode 5 where there's people doing like drugs all around the place, and I think there's people and drugs doing in the building itself. The drop when she opens it is a nice sonical touch.
Yeah. That like low pass filter shift
Yeah, and
of
there
the
we
guy
have the
with the
guy.
nose.
Yeah, he's breathing in right. It's gas, but it's judging by the color, it's some kind of like druggy gas.
Yeah.
And this sort of represents how Silco views how the underground should be and how Vander does, because Playground is very quiet and very subtle, right? It's very secretive, so to speak. That's the sort of the vibe it gives off, which is how
Yeah.
Vander saw it. This like close knit community of secretive people who are carving out a place for themselves. As well, there's a very hard focus on like pull up a chair, become a part of this group, this unified group. Whereas Silco's underground is characterized by its excesses, which makes sense
Mm,
given his character because he wanted to bring Zahn out of poverty into and provide the opportunities that are available to Piltover, which by extension would
yes.
provide the greatest of excesses.
Yeah.
And it's also unlike Vander's, who's very secretive. It's very loud and it's in your face and it's very brazen, much like Silco is, much like Silco's version of Zahn is. So these both songs characterize their respective versions of Spawn very closely and give you a very good idea of what is sort of the vibe and this sort of cultural zeitgeist that now exists within Dawn.
You know what's very interesting? There's also a bit of a theme of like a leader's view of their area they're controlling in theory versus in practice. Right? Like Vander's in theory was like, we have a crappy situation, but we're together and we got that community. However, we're kind of under their boot in a sense. There's like kind of like being trapped down there and stuff. Um, however way you look at, like, like there's a crime that covers every coin that passes through or whatever. Silco's ideal, the nation of Zon, right? We're gonna stick it to them. We're gonna show that we are independent versus the reality. Well, people are still kind of in a crappy situation. Now you've just created a second layer of Piltover versus Zon versus the lanes. The lanes still exist. It just you've got this, you know, layer in between of just like, you know, people that used to be jerks are now rich jerks. Um, and then there's also Jace's ideal versus in practice. He wants to do a lot that then turns out, well, if you do this, be careful. Um, and then also Heimerdinger's ideal versus in practice. Like that's a thing that happens a lot.
Yeah, I think the one other thing that I wanted to touch on as well is sort of this view from Silco wants probably not just a competitor to Piltover and independent, but like to surpass Piltover itself,
Mm,
right? They're designing cars up there. Oh, we got our own cars. They have Hex Tech, we have Shimmer, and this lays into for the hedonistic excesses. They have their own idols. Uh, they have their own art forms and stuff, right? They're clearly trying to develop, uh, in some ways, trying to make their own Piltover and surpass what Piltover has accomplished. There's a great line that reinforces this, where in the song in verse 2, where they say, uh, "Why would you die up there when you can live underneath?" So it's not just like a secretive place where people have to go to survive now. This is Silco's declaration saying this is on, and it's better than you. I'm making my own Piltover with blackjack and hookers, so to speak. And it's an insult and a declaration of intent against Piltover. That Zon is the nation that is the greatest nation and will surpass you. Um, yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. I think on the music. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
That's all.
Right, and the imagery reflects this. Right, we have tons of excess drinking, song, place.
Hedonistic.
So there's a few things we should say. I want to talk about before we get into that. One is Silco, who has seemingly never cared too deeply about any of his subordinates. Now up here defending his girl.
Yeah.
Mishaps in battle. She shot at us. She did the job she was supposed
It's
to. She
yeah,
shot at us.
it's really generous.
Yeah. Uh, and how also how he commands power in this situation, right? She's like, she's a problem, and we all know it. And he turns, who's we? Right?
Yep.
Nothing he ever says or does ever loses him any degree of power over Savika and in the conversation. Always cognizant and making sure to maintain the upper hand. Right? Savika's like, she is a problem. Like, turns, I'm the one who determines who is and who is not a problem. Who the fuck is we that you think you can sort of overstep my authority, so to speak? So,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
he's continuously maintaining power in the interaction. And then we'll see in a second, Vika's won't have a response to that, and she's like, okay, I guess. And she shuts up.
Yeah. Like
What?
as much as she has a point, like Loco's not budging on this one.
Yeah. Which shows that clearly he cares a fair bit about. Like, he's willing to let his other subordinates get shot up for her,
Yeah.
especially one
It's
who's been there since the beginning.
you know what it isn't? Fair.
Life isn't fair, Andrew. This is her
Yeah.
third chance at a dad. Okay. I think we can. But and here's the other thing. When I first watched it, it bugged me because I couldn't figure out what it was. But if you look in episode 3, all the spots around his face are or at least where the eye is, are black.
Hmm.
But then in this turn, he has like normal skin, but it's all of this off tint. So I was very confused for a while about what was going on. The answer is he's wearing makeup. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh.
Uh,
I
at,
didn't.
in episode 6, I'll point it out to you when we see it. But yeah, he looked horrible, and now he looks a lot better because he's added all this makeup. Uh,
Interesting.
which indicates like a concern for how he's viewed by people.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very like you put it, he's like I guess like he's very like well dressed, very presentable. Vander was very like, I'm just the bartender, guys, like relax.
Yeah, and it says something a bit about appearances, uh, because we come in and we see this Zon that appears to be very vibrant and very rich, and then we find out later, well, it's not exactly everything as it appears. So, interesting parallel there that sort of reinforces Silco's notion of the importance of appearance. right? Silco, or not Silco, Savika takes like a look at him. It's like, okay, I'm not winning this argument. I want to back off. And then to add insult to injury, Silco's going to criticize her. Jinx shooting everyone up was your mistake. They're very critical, Silco, of everyone but Jinx, apparently. And then Savika, and this is some interesting characterization for her, because Savika was very much, because this whole series, where we're watching her under the knowledge that she's betrayed Vander, which isn't actually, well, she did betray Vander, but I think she was never actually loyal to Vander. She was loyal to the idea of Zon. I don't know
Yeah.
if you agree or disagree with that. Um, and Silco currently, at least to her, represents the best interests of Zon at the moment. And so, despite her getting tons of shit for fucking Jinx's fuck up, she just takes it uh, because that's what she does. Right? She's a soldier. She's there to take orders, and sometimes those orders aren't fair, but you got to put that aside for the good of the dream and whatnot. So it's an interesting bit of characterization.
What she's willing to put up with.
She's clearly upset about it, and she walks out.
We get that little shot at her cloak on her arm.
Yeah. And then we have Silco's analysis of the situation here, which is what he's really thinking. Which is why I brought up earlier the competing with Piltover, because his whole thing here is the world gets smaller every day. Smaller now thanks to the Hexgate. They're leaving us behind.
Smallness that he doesn't have access to.
Yeah. Right. So he sees this entire thing as not just independent. He has independence now, effectively for all intents and purposes, and now he sees this as a competition between Thon and Piltover for dominance and prestige and power and not. And this is a nice shot because we have what happened, and I didn't notice Jinx first time when I was watching this because everything's focused on Silco,
Absolutely.
and so you're like, who's he talking to? And then we have the zoom out here and refocus on Jinx, and you realize, oh shit, she was there the entire time,
Yep. I love that.
which demonstrates not only his level and trust in her.
Well, it's also interesting that like she probably like Jinx probably like sits up there and hangs out there like all the time. Savika's probably said a lot not knowing that she was there, and she probably still doesn't know that she hangs out up there.
And you can see those are her explosive devices hanging from the ceiling,
Yep.
right? And
Presumably open.
it
Like,
also reinforces the notion that Silco finds it very important to keep her happy,
yep.
right? And now that they're alone, he'll have a talk with her, which indicates that they have a level of closeness and trust that is not present in him and anyone else.
Thing.
And if you notice, like all of his stuff has got like art and doodles on it from Jinx over the years.
Yep.
It's also got like a cup and an ashtray somewhere. This is the scene I was talking. One of the scenes where people get a bit confused on the BPD versus like the sexualization.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
I think we both agree. Nothing really sexual in this. It's all just her trying to be close to someone because of how she's lost everyone, and so that's a ever present fear in her mind. She doesn't have the ability as well to set boundaries.
Yeah, like it's very much like a father figure in her mind. She's just very touchy, I guess.
I remember once reading a story about like a mom who had 3 kids and 2 of them died in a car crash, and how overprotective she was of the third as a result.
Mm.
and would never let him drive or anything.
Oh shoot. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That'll do that.
I imagine this is something similar. And Silco is displaying a hell of a lot of trust in the next scene.
Absolutely.
Just casual, crazy. Right. So this is interesting. He blames Savika for everything that went wrong and pisses her off and has to leave because he's saying Jinx. When they're alone, he's like, this is actually kind of a problem.
Yeah. Coco's not the most. Oh, he'll say what he has to say to the right person, right? This is
Um,
like a minor example of that.
yeah,
Not
he's
quite, not quite. I know, but like he's not the type to like say everything that he thinks to everyone.
yeah. I think in this scene in particular, he in front of everyone, he's more invested in defending Jinx
Yes.
because he loves her, and in private, he's more interested in making sure Jinx makes the right decisions and does the right thing, at least from his perspective of the right thing in decisions, right? And so now that they're alone, and I imagine how JP here also feels very threatened by Savika, given how much Savika shits on her and is trying to get rid of her. So this is also him trying to reassure her that she has a spot by his place, which is what he's going to do very literally, say to her in a moment. But this is, I guess, from their perspective, this is kind of a safe space untainted by the outsiders, and so we can be a bit more honest and direct with her here. I notice how he adds to his criticism. I need to know that I can rely on you, which is the whole fucking Jinx's huge concern because Vi would never let her do anything or go anywhere with her because she wasn't ready and she couldn't rely on her. Right? You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. I think your mic cut out a couple times, so I'm just
Oh
making sure.
shoot. Okay. Yeah, and like unlike, well, at least unlike her perception of Vi and perhaps what Vi actually was thinking, Silco does send her on stuff. She is super useful to him.
Yeah,
I don't know necessarily if she sees herself as super useful to him or not. But, like he certainly is like his like number one, like I don't know, boon, I guess.
Silco does a great job uh, of making Jinx feel needed, which is the one
Mm,
thing uh, I never really could do. I never really did.
mm,
Uh, and it's her biggest fear of being unneeded and being abandoned, like she views Vi as doing.
why did you leave me?
They're what we in the business call codependent. Silco needs her and she needs him. Uh, Probably very in a very real sense for both of them as well. And that just isn't a statement
Oh,
of his
sons and daughters of Skyrim.
Carlos. Well, but that isn't like a very clear declaration of what Silco's goals and who he is. I don't know what is, right? I need you. I'm doing this for you, and also Zon, which is a great adding Zon separately is a great decision here because he's saying I'm doing this for you first, and then also Zon, which shows how his priorities have begun to shift and how they will completely change by the end of the series.
Hmm.
Zon is
Interesting.
almost an afterthought at this point. This is just a great way to demonstrate how much trust two characters have in a very unique way too. I don't think I
Absolutely.
right. I saw this and was like, oh, that's such a good way to show that. Wish I had
Yeah,
thought of
like
that.
basically,
That's
like performing like not surgery on him, but like so it's something comparable. It's not an eye drop.
right. It's painful. It's stabbing in the eye, which is super uncomfortable and super weird. But it's also a demonstration of vulnerability to Jinx. Right. He
Yeah,
has this condition, and he's giving her the responsibility of making sure he stays okay. Which gives demonstrate not only demonstrates his vulnerability to her, gives her a method in which she is useful and needed to him, reinforcing that codependency.
is Silco getting worse? Because he didn't. The last time we saw him do this in episode, I think one. I think it was episode one actually. Was he did the you know
So
bad thing, and
I
then he just
think
kind of carried on.
I think we can go rewatch if you want, but I think he doesn't actually stab himself in the first episode. He
Oh,
starts, and then Deckard says, uh, "It was them," and then he stops and puts it down.
oh, okay. Maybe yeah, makes sense.
So
Like,
immediately, it's a funny line, but also starts shifting Powder's view, or I guess JP at this point, his view of what's happening, right? Because Silco's done all this, like, no, no, you're definitely needed, and I care about you, and then he's criticized her, and now he's given the responsibility to Savika, the ogre who can't clean this funny blowtorch.
and also, like the criticism doesn't really land, right? She's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll never, like it won't happen again or whatever." Like I forget exactly. Like
Yeah.
she kind of like brushes it off.
She seems very upset about it, but says it
Yeah.
won't happen again. And I think she's more upset about having disappointed him than doing something wrong.
Mm,
And then he says, "Well, let Savika handle it." So he's giving responsibility to Savika after
yeah.
criticizing her for not being responsible, and
Yeah.
so she has this blow up moment. And then he's going to tell her to take time, which is going to be the worst thing,
Oh
because
no.
now it seems like, oh,
Eek.
she's being kicked out, she's being left behind while other people do stuff, much like Vi, Milo, and Clagger.
Yep.
Yeah, very clearly upset about that. And then focus on your gadgetry is not also a great line, because it's saying like, oh, you need to work on yourself,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Um,
It's also like I don't know that like it. He didn't say like focus on your like bombs or like it's kind of like focus on your like oh go upstairs and play your the playstations or the X station box like like it's got a little bit of that vibe of like I don't really like she could interpret that as like
your
I don't really
Nintendo
care what you're
X
doing
Station.
like yeah go do whatever it is you do up there like
Go do whatever makes your soul sing. Uh, I don't think
other
I've shown you
than
that video.
I don't think so no.
Great. Um, but yeah, as well, he's telling her to get out essentially, like go take some time, which JP might interpret as leave. I don't want you around, and
Yep.
we'll see. In this episode, she has a very negative reaction to it,
But Max, we as we learned from the show, characters take things exactly as they were intended and interpret them charitably and understandingly.
much like in real life.
Exactly.
The other thing I would like to say is Silco, in addition to being care here. The focus on your gadgetry is legitimately him telling you, oh, this is something you're good at. You should pursue that and get better at that. Which
Yeah, for sure.
in like avoid is a good dad thing to do. You know, maybe designing bombs is not the particular thing you should do it for, but in principle, encouraging kids to go do things that they're good at and they like doing that can be turned into some sort of profession is probably a real a parental thing to do. People say Silco's a bad dad. I say he's doing the best he can.
I agree.
All right, that's about halfway. Want to call it for tonight?
Yeah, I think that's a good time
Okay.
to wrap up.
Uh, I've been your host, Max Gang. You can find me on my website, linked in the description, maxgang.com, or you can subscribe to this channel, or you can go to my website and follow me on any of the social media I have. I got short stories up. I recently posted an update on the card game. We're working on rule set still, but it's almost done. And it's going to be like a 40 card set for next release. So that's great. And I've been here with Andrew, uh, who's been working on a game. Andrew, please tell us when your game comes out.
Approximately 10 hours ago.
Oh, and does this mean that I could right now go to your Steam page and buy a copy of your game?
Not only can you buy the game, but you can also get Air Obscura at 10% discount for 1 week launch.
Wow, I'm going to go buy my copy right now. Is there anything else you'd like to show before we go?
Uh, Subscribe to my YouTube. I have a book called Dragon Slayers. All right.
All right. There you go. You got a book and a game you can go see. You can go see his channel. He's got much better thumbnails than I do. Our thumbnails are okay, but his are a lot better. Also,
Thank
he
you.
does short form content most of the time, so it won't be a couple hours. I will see you tomorrow for Halo. Maybe Andrew tomorrow as well. Until then,